It's 8 o'clock on a Thursday night on the horn. That must mean it is Insinserious. I'm your host, Patrick Davis. With me, as always, the great Anthony White. On today's show, we will wrap up the NBA Finals, give you our final takes on what happened this season, and get into the already burgeoning off-season moves for many teams, a little draft coverage coming up. Then, of course, we'll get into the NFL. Running backs are not enjoying the new pay scheme. DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent and playing the market. And Stephon Diggs is doing some weird stuff. Also, top shelf, bottom shelf, Insinserious news, all that and more coming up on the show today. Remember, you can join the conversation. 512-337-3776. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. That is the best way to get a hold of us during the show. If you have something you want to add, story you want us to talk about, just tell us that our jokes are bad. Any of that, you can do that on the Specs text line. Anthony, let's start off the show the same way we do every week by asking you, what is the best thing you saw this week? UFC was all right. I will say the Longhorns game 2 was awesome. Watching them come back in that game was awesome. And then we'll pretend like the season ended there and we don't need to discuss anymore after that. But yeah, that game was very fun. And shout out happy birthday to Kiki as well, because we were over at her birthday party enjoying a pool and then watching the game. It was a very fun time. But also the NBA Finals were happening this last week. They wrapped up. We knew it was going to be. We said it was going to be a sweep, and then we said it was going to be a gentleman's sweep. That it was just the Miami pulled one more out of it, but they did. I mean, and all right, I like, you don't want to complain about reffing in a series that you win 4-1, but that call at the end of the game, if Miami wins that game, it's such a bad call, and they have to fix the review. I'll just be like, look, hand it over to someone else who hates officials, and and give it to a nonpartisan person that will allow them to actually overturn some of these calls, because their percentage of getting it right is so astronomical for how many missed calls there are in every game, and that one was horrifically bad. That there's a whole thing about please stop kicking out your foot, and then they still did it even though he kicked out his foot. What was the underlining? Refs hate saying they missed a call, and the more they miss it, the more they will double down and say it was the right call. They'll find any reason to do it. They do not ever want to admit they're wrong because they're so worried about losing power. And you're like, dude, we already hate you. We already think you're stretching series and all that. Don't add to it by putting on national television in a game where over 5 million people are watching to be like, by the way, we're terrible at our job. Look, we even saw it. We know, and we're not going to change it. Don't do that. That's just dumb. But we see Jokic. We see Jokic wins Finals MVP, immediately loses the trophy. Basically gives the worst interviews ever, just constantly being like, "Oh, guys, I thought I won. I can go home now, right, guys?" I mean, he did have the great quote that this is like a 9 to 5, and it's like. He's like, look, no one likes their job, and if they say they do, they're lying. Which, wow, that's a power move from a NBA basketball player. But I think there's some truth to that. And everybody, they're like, you don't understand all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes and the pain and having to be away from your family for so much time. I'm sure there's parts of it you hate, but you can't just go like, yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, when I have 100,000 people at a parade chanting my name, I just think, boring. I'd like to be riding a horse right now. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's just amazing that he doesn't like it. Now, I will say, if I'm Denver and I want this guy to have a long career, I'm trying to find teammates who have mutual interests, and I'm trying to get his teammates to have mutual interests with him to kind of make everything easier. So, no, I'm not sorry. I'm bringing in horses. We're having a lot of horse ranching because he loves his horses. So they come in and they're like, "How was your horses this weekend?" They're like, "My horses were great this weekend." It's gonna be great. You have that. Everybody has to have a pool on their team. Everybody has to have a pool because he likes pool. So when they're like, "Hey, can you come over and watch film?" and he's like, I guess, and it's like in the pool. He's like, "All right, let's do it." But I'm just saying because look, he's got 5 years left on his deal after this year, I believe. So he technically should be playing till he's 32 or 33, somewhere in that range. Do you think he signs another deal when you hear at the pinnacle of the game, he seems like all he wanted to do was leave? Dude, is this a guy? And I know we had it with Tim Duncan. Like Tim Duncan on the Spurs for years was a guy that you said he's not going to play long. You didn't think he was going to retire early, but you didn't think he was going to play long, and then he did. And this is way worse. But it's also like I'm just saying. What I said the other day was if Jokic retired at 30, you'd be like, yeah, makes sense. And if he played till he was 40, you go, yeah, makes sense. That's how we know about him as a person, that you just accept that he played to 40 and you'd be like, oh, yeah, no, it was a job to him. And who retires at 30? So he's just like, I'll do this till I was 50 if you keep going to pay me $60 million a year. I am curious to see how many, if he gets to where it's going to be a lot less fun too, is if teams start bringing in big guys to be very physical with him. Now, there's one thing is with Shaq, you could do that with David Robinson or Akeem or any of those centers. I mean, Anthony Davis to a point, but Jokic is such a good 3-point shooter, such a good dribbler that you can't really just put a 7-footer who can't with no lateral movement on him, or he'll blow past him every single play and get into the paint. And either you have to jump in the middle of the lane and take a charge from this beast, or he's going to pass the ball off and they're going to get another easy shot or dunk. Like you can't just do the same old trope of, hey, we're just going to put a big guy inside to bump him and he's 6 fouls. Because Jokic can just step outside on that, and then you're like, well, we have to pull him out of the game. He's getting torched. And the minute you pull him out of the game, he goes back into the post. So it's interesting to see what type of player they're going to try and bring up to bump on. If it is someone who's like 6'9", you're like trying to find 6'9", 6'8" guys that are just really muscly so they can move, and they're just like, hey, look, he's just going to be awful on offense, but we're just have to deal with it. I don't know what they're going to do, but you figure teams, especially in the West, are going to start trying to figure out a way to slow down Jokic, because this is a team that if Jamal Murray can stay healthy, Michael Porter Jr. can stay healthy, then they have a real shot to have a window open for the next 4 or 5 years. Not in the middle of a season, because I think he's already bored. I think that's the thing is for him, he says it's a job. So I think that he will be a guy that continues to do his job. It's just how he is, his work ethic. How he's gotten so good is he has a great work ethic. He just is like, this is when my people told me I could go home after I won a title. They said, you won a title, you can go home now. And then now there's a parade. What's next? You guys are tricking me. This is overtime. I want pay and a half. Yeah, because Michael Porter Jr. I don't know what his value is. If I mean it is. Yeah. I mean, he's under contract till 26, 27. So he's making a lot of money. So there may be a point where they trade him because he's making so much money, but he's under contract. I believe Jamal Murray's under contract too. So I'm not as worried about those guys. Now you have to figure out Bruce Brown. You have to figure out Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, how long you're able to keep him. There are other pieces that you kind of need, or else you're going to be a player short in those playoffs. And that's what's, I think, Denver's going to kind of rotate in between for the next 5 or so years. Are they a player short in some of these, or is there another injury? Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. both have a very uh, sketchy injury history. Well, did you see Michael Malone today in the parade? He said, "Are we losing Brucey B? No way. We're running this ish back." And Michael Malone was hammered, so it was great to watch him today. Yeah. I think there'll be a lot of guys because Jokic is one of those guys that he's a fun guy to play with because he is not a star who wants to not like he wants to pass. He looks pass first. And he's also someone that doesn't need to have the ball in his hands all the time. Now, that means on the flip side, you got to find guys that are the right fit for that. You have to find guys that understand where their place is on the team because you can get a guy who gets in there and then has an unselfish team and goes, well, now it's mine. I will take this. There's enough of those guys in the league as well, and then you basically can't play them. I think that's kind of what Bones Highland was there because that was we saw Bones Highland get traded before the deadline, basically to get him off of the team. They didn't have a true backup point guard. Reggie Jackson played 8 minutes in that series, something like that. But they just need to get rid of Bones Highland because he is a guy that wants that ball in his hands. All he feels that he could be the best player on offense, and when you have all these other guys, you're not. And if so I think that's part of it. Is you're gonna have to find the right guys that fit in. You're gonna have to deal with disgruntledness if Bruce Brown resigns and then his minutes get diminished because they draft a guy who turns in and kind of comes in and starts to steal his minutes during the regular season. You're going to have to deal with the hangover of I would not surprise me if Jokic came back in not the best shape. Just because, I mean, like, you're talking about that turnaround is really quick in the NBA. Yeah, and I mean it's like, but for him, it's how much weight can he put? I mean, I bet he could put on 40 pounds in an off season just because he's a huge guy. There's a lot of you could do it and not notice it that much, but it'll be hell on his knees, and so there's a lot of questions that go into that. But I think they have at least the next 5 years. That window is open right now, and then it's a question of does Jokic play more than 5 more years? I think that's where that's where it starts more than that. They're not two players because the only other team where you'd say has that like generational talent that is really kind of a thing would be Milwaukee, look, Milwaukee, he's won two MVPs and he's won a championship. That's a question, and those are the other parts of it. So they're not there yet. So I don't know if there is that second team to compete, but there is always going to be another team to go in there and compete. Yeah, I mean that one's going to be interesting because I just don't know what they're going to be able to do. They seem to be running things not very well right now, and the owner seems to be wanting to make very drastic, quick moves. So we'll see with Chris Paul. I mean, if you're able to cut Chris Paul and then re-sign him for less, that's a great start to things. But if you can't get that pulled off, then you're basically starting off at a deficit for a season that didn't already work. We know Kevin Durant, as great as he is probably a 50 to 55 games a year player for the rest of his career, which is great, but are you going to have that in the playoffs? Like, you never know when those games are going to come. From the other side of the ball, Miami. If you're Miami, do you keep this going? Do you say, yeah, let's try and run this back. We've got a bunch of good role players. Maybe add one piece, but let's not blow it up. Let's not make a big trade. Let's not go after one of those big names that's out there. Let's just try and add one, like middle ground piece. Or do you say, man, we were so close, but we were not really that close. Like, we kind of lucked into this. I mean, some of them are. Some of them are. Uh, but I mean, you're also at a point where you can afford to pay some of them as well because you just don't have a ton of star. I mean, Duncan Robinson's a guy that I mean, I think you're definitely looking at Duncan Robinson as somebody that after this season being like, hey, maybe he's trade bait again and we can ditch off this contract that we don't really want anymore. It is salary cap wise, uh, which is really what you're looking at more. So there is stuff where they may not spend the money technically, but salary cap wise, it it equals out to not the best way you want it. Yeah. So you would add a piece. You would say kind of blow it up a little bit more. Keep Jimmy Butler, keep Bam Adebayo, but that's it. I mean, like, but I'm saying there's no one else who's untouchable. Okay. Yeah, because otherwise it's like it's picking pieces and who can stay and who wants how much money. So we can't say no, but no one else on that team. For I agree. I don't think there's anyone who's untouchable. Now I'm not necessarily blowing up for the sake of blowing it up, but if I can get Damian Lillard, I'm 100% all in on him to Miami solely in the fact of that's a guy that we know won't disappear in the finals. A ton of future draft picks and guys. But that's what I'm saying is, but you kind of know we're going to get rid of these guys anyway. So I don't mind necessarily giving that up and then trying to find some other pieces, hoping you find some other guys in there. But yeah, I think they can because I think it'll open up for Butler as well to make him a better player because he's not the guy anymore. And we saw when everyone came to him, it's like he kind of backed off. I still, and I don't know this, but it still seemed to me that when they won Game 3 against Boston, he looked ahead and saw Denver and realized he couldn't beat them, and he quit, and not like quit mentally, but like in subconsciously was like, I don't know how I'm going to beat Denver. Like they're just a better team than us. We can beat Boston. They're very flawed. Like we can find the holes and pick. But it just seemed like when they went up Game 3, he didn't have any fire in him left, and I don't get why you don't have fire in you anymore. But I'm saying from the last 8 games of the playoffs, Jimmy Butler did not seem like he wanted to be there. All right, on that, let's go to somebody who may be overrated or maybe not. Zion Williamson in the news. The Pelicans are talking that they're going to be starting to listen to offers. Now, the problem with this is that the offers that they're asking and what they're saying are outlandish. So they were like, if we can get a Scoot Henderson, like, you're not getting the number 3 pick. Like, do you understand? If I'm Portland and you want to send me Zion Williamson, I go, cool. I want Brandon Ingram too. I probably want Jackson Hayes too. I probably want like multiple players in this pick because I'm going all in for now. So I'm going to need a lot of players with this because I can't take one guy who's never going to play more than 60 games in a season ever. He played 61, I think, was the most he's played in a season. But I don't think he's ever going to play that many because he just doesn't have the discipline right now. And maybe in 5-10 years, he'll figure it out and start to lose weight. But by that point, he's going to lose some of that athleticism as well. And that's what he's so explosive being. He's so good when he's on the court because he's not even tapped into his potential yet. And he's already a 20, like close to a 30-point guy, 30 and 10 guy, close, already. And so he can be a 30 and 10 guy within a year of playing if he can stay on the court. But I don't know, like, I don't, the value's not there because he has in 4 years played 114 games. That's less than 2 seasons. That's less than 2.5 seasons in 4 years. Or it's less than a season and a half in 4 years. That's what I mean. That, but I mean, I think if they still had Wiseman, that trades more, a little bit more sense because you go Wiseman and Kaminga and Moody, and they say we're getting rid of all these young guys we're not going to play. We're going to add in a Draymond because he can run the court with us, and we're fine with him missing a lot of games. We'll just try and get him healthy for the postseason. I get that. I don't think Steve Kerr really cares to mess around with rookies, is what we've seen. So as long as he's still there, I don't necessarily see that working out fully because we saw that he has not built any of those young guys. And I mean, Jordan Poole, he clearly did not have he had way too long of a leash on this year. I But that's the thing is, so all these teams where you go, okay, Houston with the number 4 pick. Now that makes more sense to me because you're Houston, you kind of want to swing for the fences because treated they've got a coach, they've got, you've got some veterans that are, retired players like Akeem and Clyde Drexler that are kind of still around that program that can help out in certain ways. But I'm not sure they've got the team there that makes sense. But the number 4 pick, the difference between the number 3 and the number 4 pick in this draft right now is monumental because everyone on the fourth and the fourth and on is a project, right? Everyone fourth and on, you have to basically go, this guy is going to be at best a role player, probably off the bench. And if you're starting him, he's playing 10 to 15 a game probably for the next year, maybe 2. And then we'll start to amp him up. And it could be a complete swing and miss. Like I said, the 2 Thompson brothers, they've just played at such a lower level that you go, both those guys could turn out to be all-stars easily. They have so much potential. But at the same point, there's also they couldn't ever match up to it. You don't know if you get the wrong one, if he doesn't turn out to be the guy. And it's also just going to take time to get them used to the speed and the power and the physicality of the game. So, if you're Houston and you're trying to go, hey, we're trying to go now. We're trying to put our foot on the gas. We need to figure out what we got because these guys are about to get paid. If you're drafting one of these guys that's a project, you're going to have to pay your other players before they're ready to play. And so I get why Houston kind of falls into this category of maybe being open to trade, maybe trying to get somebody. I still think they should really go all in and try and get Damian Lillard and pair him with James Harden and keep Jalen Green and hopefully Jabari Smith and try and just basically put this thing together to try and super drive it. But I don't know how much any of that could be close to happening. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. But that's again, they don't like. So what they said is they want to move up in the draft, and I think it's because they basically Pelicans built this team with a window that's open right now because they went out and got CJ McCollum and they built it all and they said we're gonna have Zion Williamson and in year 2 and 3 his window we're gonna open that window in his year 2, 3, and 4 and he hasn't played. And so that year 2 they were like he played 60 and they're oh man and they missed all year 3 and they've realized now that window is rapidly closing because they basically wasted a first-round draft pick, a number 1 overall pick, on a guy who's not on the court. And so if they can turn him into somebody else who can immediately come in, i.e. Scoot Henderson is what they feel, can come in and put you up 20 points a game, which as a rookie that's really hard to do, to put up 20 points a game. But that's what they're thinking. I get it, but I don't think he's got that value because the upside of a Scoot Henderson, who we know has a ton of potential to be the face of a franchise and is going to be on a rookie pay scale for 4 or 5 years versus Zion Williamson, who's already got his next contract signed. I think that it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense for him or Brandon Miller either. Brandon Miller's another guy that you go, I'd rather have him on a rookie contract and I believe he will be a factor on a team. Now, he's one of those guys that you go, his floor is a lot closer to like a Richard Jefferson or someone like that. He was a good player. So, and I mean, his actual floor is lower, but we're saying what we think of what he could be. So, like a guy who's right around an all-star, but probably maybe a one-time all-star. That's where you're thinking if things don't go to plan. But you also go, no, he could turn out and be a really good wing and be a guy closer to Brandon Ingram style, who they already have got, which that puts you in where Brandon Ingram gets MVP votes at points. So, like, he has that ceiling of, oh, man, he can play some big games. I just don't see it. I'm not. No, I think they need to move on from. I think it's time. It's clearly not working out. You're trying to move on. Oh, that seems like a bad idea for so many reasons. And we're getting to these draft storylines again. I do want to bring up Dallas. So we've talked a little bit about Houston. We've talked about Portland. I do want to bring up Dallas with this 10th pick. I know Dallas is one of the teams that's going to go and try and hit up Zion. They're going to try and hit up everybody. I'm so curious to what happens with Dallas because they are so desperate and everyone knows it. And so they have no leverage in any discussion. And it feels like they're a team that's just going to have to settle for taking a draft pick and hope that somebody wants that pick, because before they make it, I don't think everyone is basically going to keep lowballing them up until they make their pick, just because everyone's like, no, we don't think that it's going to matter.
They don't have players to offer. They don't have picks, right? So
No.
they're kind of in this terrible limbo. And yes, they're desperate. They see how terribly the GM and just the choice making has been. If you're Luka, like, do you give this team one more year and then you demand a trade, or are you already starting to think maybe it's time to put my foot down?
No, if I'm Luka, I'm still waiting on it. I think that he has shown that this team is trying to do everything for him, and you understand well enough that even with trying to do everything, there's a certain line of, like, most teams will try and do, like, it won't work on most teams. This is not if I go somewhere else, they'll have it figured out. It's, no, if I go somewhere else, they're going to have to give up their entire team and all their future picks to get me. So I should play it until I can hit free agency and then go pick where I want to go, and they at least they can pay me, but they're not going to have to give up everything on their team.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to walk into basically the same exact situation except 4 years behind schedule and then try and wait it out again. So if I'm Dallas, though, I'm trying to figure. I'm resigning myself to. I'm going to start plugging how happy I am about some of these draft picks and just try and change the narrative.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to do.
Yeah.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we are going to talk some NFL and, of course, top shelf, bottom shelf, Insinserious news. All that coming up on the Horn, 1049, 1019, AM 1260. Stream it live on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Back in Insinserious here on the Horn. Time to get in some NFL news. Remember, you can join the conversation. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. Let's get into some NFL news, Anthony. NFL running backs are very upset right now, especially the ones who were waiting for paydays they thought were coming, had budgeted accordingly that the NFL was not going to decide at some point that running backs are completely valueless and should not make more than like $2 or $3 million a year. That's basically what they've decided now, that $5 million is really the upside of the running back market, and which is crazy considering the franchise tag is $10 million now. And clearly that's not going to stand. But Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs both got franchise tagged. Both, I believe, have not signed their franchise tags yet. Barkley has come out and said he has no intentions to sign a franchise tag. He wants a long-term deal, which I get, especially when you deal with injuries. You're like, man, I clearly this could be over at any point, and you're hoping it is, so you can cut me and wait and just get rid of me, and you want no guaranteed money, nothing. You just get rid of me, and then you're telling me how much you want me on your team. But
Right.
we all know the writing's on the wall that you'd rather re-sign me every season for a one-season deal, non-guaranteed, and the second I get hurt, you cut me. And it's the only position that is now fully into that market of you are like a special teams player to us, but we need you to carry the ball 40 times a year. We need you to help protect our most valuable commodity in a quarterback. We need you to stand back and take blocks from rushing giant men. You got to do that one as well. Where's the breaking point in this running back market? I think it's great that Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs are trying to take a stand in it. Austin Eckler is probably going to as well this offseason. When his contract comes up, I know he signed the new incentive-based deal to basically show up at camp, but he will probably still not be happy going into the offseason. Dalvin Cook has said everybody assumed he was going to sign right away. He stepped back, and I think what's great is for Dalvin Cook and free agents, you have to understand, man, I get it. I see every year when running backs get hurt, and everyone freaks out, and everybody needs one to save their season.
Yeah.
And you do anything for one then. Now in the offseason, you got your young guys, and you got this, and you'll be fine. But I know what's coming. I know what's right around the bend. You're all going to be desperate for running backs, and then I will come back, and I am clearly head and shoulders above anybody else that's a free agent in the running back market right now. Is this kind of what running backs are going to have to do, at least the top guys, is wait and go, I can't just go and say I want to play for the best team, and that because they're never going to offer it. I have to wait until I'm wanted to try and reset the market. Do you think these guys basically holding out and Dalvin Cook not signing is going to help, or is this going to backfire and all those guys are going to end up and they just go, we don't care, we'll get the next guy?
It's such a toss-up. I think, some of them are going to suffer. I think it's going to be too much of a risk, but I mean, it makes sense. It is what it is. The injuries, too many times, Ezekiel is a prime example. Too many times teams have just went all in, known better, and now look at it. You know what I mean? And so, you feel somewhat sorry, I guess, but I mean, it's just the evolution of the game. I guess they are still valuable commodities, but there's just it's so saturated. They're kind of like the point guards of the NFL. Like you can just find every year, and we can use like fantasy football as a litmus test. But every year there's this unknown, unsigned free agent that becomes this darling of the season. The Khalil Herberts, the Malcolm Browns, the Deontay Foremans. Who you didn't have to pay nothing, and they took over a whole season. So then you look at Miami, who has just like 6 or 7 running backs, and they just run by committee. Same with San Francisco, but not so much anymore now that they have Christian McCaffrey. But the position in itself is changing to a committee style, and so it's hard to justify paying a top player.
It is, but it also, we're not talking about playing a top player. So I'm not saying everyone should be getting $12 million. But it overcorrected so much that there was it did need to be corrected. The market did, and they overcorrected so far the other way. And it was basically because there's guys like Deontay Foreman is a perfect example. Comes out of Texas, Doak Walker Award winner, really good running back, has some injury problems, doesn't make the splash when he first comes on. kind of gets around, plays for Tennessee, does okay, ends up going to Carolina. They trade Christian McCaffrey. He steps up, plays really good. This is normally the offseason he would cash in, right?
Right.
This is where you get a 2 or 3 year deal for $7 or $8 million a year, and you go and you try and play. And then it's, people either say that's a great deal and you got him for a steal or you're nothing. They get him for $2 million. But for him, it's life-changing money.
Sure.
Because that's the difference of, hey, man, you got to play, 10 year, and you got to go to Arena League after this to try and make enough money so that you can afford to go into a career that you want to go into versus, hey, man, just trying to find a job to pay bills. Like all those things. Plus, when you talk about, NFL retired player insurance, you only get for as many years you're in the league. There's so many things of, I get why if you're a running back and you're not necessarily the guy, you have to take less money. But it ruins the market for everyone on top because if I'm willing to get a Deontay Foreman for $2 million, well, the difference between Deontay Foreman and Saquon Barkley is a lot. But is he 4 times better? Is he 5 times better than Deontay Foreman? 6 times better? Because if you're saying he's worth $12 million, that's 6 times more than I'm paying Deontay Foreman. And that's where I think they're trying to sell that narrative to the fans and trying to sell that narrative to everybody. And it's all BS because the reality is, you pay for what you get. And if you want an elite running back, you have to pay for an elite running back. Certain teams have. The San Francisco 49ers don't mind paying for an elite running back because they run the ball a lot. And that's what you get. But I think a lot of these teams are thinking, hey, man, we see that there's a stat about how many Super Bowl teams, they're basically no one pays for running backs on Super Bowl teams.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at that and using it as an excuse. It's lazy management, but everyone's bought into it, and I'll never get where the wide receivers get to blow up the market and running backs basically get completely shafted in the deal. And I'm hoping that you reset both of these. But speaking of resetting the markets, DeAndre Hopkins now, the rumor is he met with the Patriots and everything was going great, and they're both super happy, and they're going to take a few days to analyze the system and analyze what they want to do going forward.
Yeah.
The rumored deal is roughly $10 million plus incentives. So he'd be making around $6 million less than Odell Beckham Jr.
That's insane.
So he would be switching the wide receiver market that now a wide receiver one is making. It's very incentive based is the contracts we're going to go to. And we want to start at a base of 12 to 15 with incentives and try and reset that market. Now, you have Justin Jefferson coming up, and that's
all I was thinking.
And Chase Young.
They're going to reset it.
They're going to reset it as well.
Yeah.
But we know that it would hurt them if they go, well, there's wide receivers out there in the market. We can go get somebody. And are you triple as good as DeAndre Hopkins? He signed for $10 million. You want 30? He signed for 10. Are you triple as good as him?
Yes.
And I mean, not in their prime. DeAndre Hopkins was the top 5 receiver in the league in his prime.
But his prime is so far.
It's not so far. It's a couple years. He was in Arizona, which Arizona, by the way, we found out recently, is the most dysfunctional franchise in the NFL.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And I keep seeing stuff come up about it now, and it's crazy that they're like, this guy was like, hey, talking to Derek Anderson, former quarterback. They were like, no, say it was the Browns. He's like, I never had to pay for my own water with the Browns.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it's apparently
that's terrible.
Which the Texans really lucked out that the 2 main franchise pieces they left both went to Arizona, so it makes Houston look great. Now they're coming back like, yeah, dude, we'd love to come back. You guys were so nice to us. Like, apparently Bill O'Brien's a cool enough dude now. Nick Saban really turned his life around.
Yeah.
And so now he's a cool dude, and DeAndre Hopkins is willing to suck up his pride, pay for no money for a guy who traded him away for a washed-up running back and a pack of gum. Like, I don't get – it doesn't make any sense. The other team he talked to is the Titans. If I'm DeAndre Hopkins, I do the same thing Dalvin Cook did, and I wait till preseason.
Sure.
I don't want to go to camp. I don't need to go to camp. And guess what? When you guys have all your young wide receivers that you think are amazing and you go into camp and they can't run routes and they can't separate and your quarterback's throwing interceptions in preseason and no one looks any good and you were like, crap, we don't have a wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
We just don't have one. We need to go get one now because we're trying to win a Super Bowl. All of a sudden, DeAndre Hopkins, that goes up. And if he's willing to take incentive-based, go take incentive and go there and do that. Because I'll tell you right now, the Patriots will screw you on the back end of that incentive base. Bill Belichick does not care about people. And I don't say people. I don't use that lightly. I don't think he cares about. I think if a dog licked him in the face, he would get mad at the dog. He's just a person like that. That's Bill Belichick taking shots. And then we got Stephon Diggs, who seems to be angry again.
I just don't think he likes the cold. He keeps thinking about, man, not another season of this.
Not another. Guys, can we wait?
He's like,
it's the summer.
I have one of the best quarterbacks. I have one of the easiest jobs. I don't understand
I don't
what
know.
his gripe is about.
It's a very weird thing. I don't know what to think about it.
DeAndre's all, I'll come replace him for 10. How about that?
Yeah. I'll take so much less. Take so much less, guys. Just somebody want me. Let's go over to Top Shelf, Bottom Shelf. Every week, Anthony gives the stories we don't have time to get to in the rest of the show. No, it's if they're Top Shelf grade A. I'm going on vacation next week. Or that Bottom Shelf. Still going to get calls from work the whole week.
And there's going to be smog from the fires.
No, the smog is going to be gone. It's blowing out. It's blowing out. I'm by the beach. The ocean air will take it out. It will take it out. Remember, join the conversation. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. Anthony, what is our first story?
I don't know how this is still a thing. Antonio Brown gets kicked out of the Arena League. How did this just happen? How did it not happen?
So the owners have voted. They basically kicked the whole team out. But they were like, yeah, no, you can't run a franchise. You can't do anything. You're an embarrassment to the league. You're making news. So we were cool with it for a little bit because we're like, this is the most anyone has talked about arena football forever. And then they were like, oh, we're about to have a class action lawsuit against us of how awful this is going. So yeah, he has been kicked out. Top Shelf, grade A Arena Football League for basically having to understand that it wasn't worth it at a certain point to have a like MVP caliber guy for several years in the NFL comes to your team and you're just like, we have to walk away.
So, all right, I want your prediction. What is the next team or franchise that he owns?
Oh,
do you think he could own a
lingerie football,
a Subway franchise? Is he at that level?
Oh, you think he'd I bet he could be a sandwich artist.
Yeah,
I bet he could do that. I like that.
All right, this one, A's fans hold reverse boycott.
Hey, round of applause. Top Shelf A's. Look, I hate people with generational wealth. I cannot stand the fact that this dude, dad, made a bunch of money, and so he can basically ruin a franchise so that he can move it, and the MLB will bail him out by basically helping him get some players and stuff because they want to succeed in Las Vegas, and he just screws over a fan base. And that guy really never earned his own money. It drives me nuts that that's a thing. But that's the way our country works. So,
right.
You know what? I love that they showed up to just be like, look, we're still here. You just put together such a bad show for us, and the building is so run down, and we're afraid we're going to die going to this parking lot because you refuse to do anything about it. I really appreciate that they did something, and they tried something different, and it was crazy to hear the chants, and that they were just completely silent during an at-bat. And then came in with the sell the team chant. Like, it was organized. It was a very cool thing for – I get they're giving money to it, but it was also like, yeah, go and do this. And it was cool for the players to see that there are fans for them and stuff, and it's just that they have a crappy owner.
Right. I love it. SEC announces 2024 football schedule.
Awesome to see. Texas, pretty tough. You get games. Georgia's coming to Austin. Florida's coming to Austin. You got to go to your rivals in A&M and Arkansas. Look, 23-3, we still got to play. We don't even know who's going to go to the draft or who's going to still be here in 2024, but it was awesome to see the schedule come out and enjoy it. And Aggies, you got a cream puff schedule. You guys have nothing to talk about. And by the way, how many times have you played Georgia since you've been in the SEC? Like once? And we're playing them first year.
Yeah.
So nothing to talk about. You got your home game. We gave it to you. Just let you know, CDC called, said you can have the home game. You can have it. You got your game. It's going to be great to beat the crap out of you. It's going to be so much fun to watch when Texas walks all over you at Kyle Field.
You kind of just glossed over Michigan.
But that's not a conference game.
That's not a conference.
But no,
still.
it'll be that schedule for Texas in 2024 is a beast.
Yeah,
it is a beast. You got to go to Michigan. You're going to Arkansas, going to A&M. You're playing Georgia and Florida at home. Also in that, Alabama playing Oklahoma is cool. You knew they were because they split up the games. And that Oklahoma game, something weird that has probably never happened in the Oklahoma-Texas rivalry, is they will have 0 same opponents the entire season because they've split up the 14 teams in the SEC to 7 play Texas, 7 play Oklahoma. So they have 0 mutual opponents in a season. It's a very weird thing with no other trash talk of like, we beat that guy and you didn't.
Yeah.
None of that. It's crazy.
Love it. Golfer tackled by security for celebrating friend's win.
This was fantastic. That security guard, everyone's like, security guard doing his job. And you're like, there was a cop 2 feet away who didn't care. This is clearly a security guard who was ready. Like he was just
waiting.
Like, I wish somebody would come. He's got a bottle, and he goes and tackles him. It was amazing. I'm a big fan of anytime. And the guy was Canadian, so he got back up. I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. Oh, I came out. I was just trying to celebrate. Oh no, oh boy, really made a mess of everything, didn't I? Oh no."
You sound like boy.
This is Canadian.
I know that.
You know what? I'm from Texas.
Okay, that's fine.
But yeah, very top shelf. Top shelf anytime golf tries to get interesting. Way more if we could just be like, hey, you know what? Every once in a while, someone's getting tackled in golf. You would watch so much more golf.
Just,
Just
it'd be random.
Like, just to be like, oh, it's bad. I bet that guy. He's like, he's coming out, and then out of the left, another guy comes out and tackles. You're like, oh, it would be the best.
I love it. I love that idea. Nats manager brings photo to argue call after the game.
Hey, Nats manager Davey Hernandez. I can't remember his name.
Sure.
The Astros don't cheat. Everybody knows that about the Astros.
What was the picture?
So basically, they hit the ends of the game. Jake Myers hits a blooper up. They throw the ball to the plate. He's trying to throw the ball to make a double play at first. They say that Jake Myers was too far inside the line, not running in the base path. So he threw it. So he took a picture of him running inside the base path. But it's kind of 50-50 because by the time the ball was thrown, he was further down and more on the line. But they showed it before then.
I got you.
But it ended up, and so the ball bounced off his helmet, which meant that he was safe at first, even though he was going to beat the throw anyway. But yeah, it was just funny to see this guy. He's like, this is crap. Hilarious. Top shelf because the Astros win.
Beautiful.
Let's do one more. We'll go to break.
All right. Nunez wins, then retires.
You know what? It was a good enough fight.
It wasn't.
It was a good enough fight for not a retirement.
Yes.
So if that was not a retirement, it's fine. You got to come back, Nunez.
You have to
one
come
more.
back.
One more. We got to get, but I need to build somebody else. So give it like 2-3 years, build another star, and then have Nunez come back and boss battle each other.
I like that because that's not how you end a career.
No. You want to see her come back and then beat the crap ass new girl and take her belt and then wipe her butt with it and be like, I don't even need this. I'm retired again. But yeah, have her have a heel turn before then too.
There you go.
Come back, start the NWO. Make it work. We got to take a break. When we come back, we are going to hit Insinserious News here on the Horn on 104.9, 101.9 AM of 1260. Back at Insinserious on the horn, Anthony, it is time for some Insinserious news. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Our first story. Florida beachgoers were shocked when a bear emerges from the Gulf of Mexico. They were all at the beach, and they were like, hey, man, that dog's a little far out there. It's a big dog. That's a big, oh, my God, that's a bear. And the bear apparently just got out of the ocean, just kept making its way, just got out, ran off into the brush there. But they were like, yeah, wouldn't expect to see a bear here at the beach. Not a beach animal usually. Have you ever seen anything that was wildly out of place like that, where you just see somebody and you're just like, yeah, you don't belong here?
Anytime I see eggs on a burger,
Yeah.
it's so inappropriate.
Yeah, I always hear people doing that, and you're just like, why? What do you need? Guys, stop trying to make breakfast the cool thing. Just PSA. Breakfast, it's a morning thing. Morning things are naturally the enemy of fun and cool. So stop trying to make breakfast. You can have breakfast anytime. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make this the morning again, aren't you? The morning sucks, guys. That's why we sleep through it. We stay up late. Yeah, if you think, and by the way, if you think the TV's better at 10 a.m. than it is at 3 a.m., you're crazy.
Crazy.
And I know it's terrible at 3 a.m., but it's somehow much better than
It's a
10
certain
a.m.
type of terrible.
Yeah, because at least at 10 a.m., no one's telling me that my life should be better. No, all you got to do is do more curls in your... Oh, terrible 10 a.m. I don't know what 10 a.m. TV. I've never watched it in my life, but because I'm either at work or asleep.
Still asleep.
Yeah, like I'm doing something. I'm never just sitting around chilling at 10 a.m. You're like, oh, why am I up? And I'm also saying 10 a.m. is the morning. Should tell you how my life has gone for me.
It's like,
All right, next story. A troll apartment in the middle of Los Angeles Bridge listed at $250,000. Apparently, this guy bought the like little house. It's on top of a bridge underneath a road. But you have to play the troll toll to get through it. But he was like, I'm going to build this, and it's going to be a cool like Airbnb. And then he never put any money into it. Just use it for storage. So it is kind of beaten down. That's why it's
sounds
cheap in
so
LA.
terrible.
But if you want to have a place on top of a bridge, this is the place to have it. Is there any weird place like that you'd be like, oh no, I could see myself in a place?
No. I mean, like a tree house would be cool for like a day, maybe like for a week, maybe a month. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, my house needs to be stable.
I could see myself above a Mexican restaurant because
It'd be terrible.
this is just like every day you just wake up and you'd be like, oh, I'm just going to eat Mexican food all day, and just all day, every day, just eating. And then eventually I would break through the floor and land down there and be like, well, now it's time to officially eat myself to death. That is what's going to happen. Guys, just give me queso until you don't see me breathing anymore. That is how I'm going to go out. Our final story. Beer kegs blocked the Michigan highway. Semi overturned, and beer kegs rolled out in there. I feel like that's when I would be the most used to anybody is when beer kegs are out and they'd be like, hey, these beer kegs are pretty happy. And I was like, I can help you make them lighter. I'm going to drink 4 of these kegs, just sit on the road drinking warm beer kegs.
That's terrible.
What would you not be mad with blocking the road if they were like, oh, you could just take one of those beer kegs. What would be for you?
Sleep. I'm so tired. If there was some sleep, I'd take it.
Hey, Adrian, you can just zone out while we clean this up. Yes. You're like, perfect.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Can you tell my boss? We got to get out of here. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out. We will be back in 2 weeks. I'm on vacation next week, so I will not be here. So enjoy the NBA draft. Hopefully, you'll be watching the NBA draft and enjoying that. But until then, keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you next week. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Make it work. Peace.